G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video. And here we go with the next round of the FIA Nations Cup for the 2021 to the 2022 series. We find ourselves once again smack bang in the middle of top split, 10th ranked there in terms of DR. I think my DR was actually only about 61,000 at this point here. But first of all, we have to go for qualifying, and you see the car I'm in, the Audi R8, an MR absolute animal, an MR animal, mid-engine rear-wheel drive machine, very oversteery, very unstable, but that was the meta car around this particular combination, of which we'll talk about a little bit more in a second. But as you can see, all you need to know for now is that I'm in the Audi R8, Group 3 variant, of course, around Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. We come out of the pit lane behind Tez and Greatness. Now, Greatness bins his lap here, so that's one less car in front of us. Well, you probably know me by now. I don't like slipstream in qualifying, but you might be asking the question, as Tez makes a mistake, you might be asking, oh, why don't you just drop back and get some clear air? Because the time limit on this qualifying session is 5 minutes, and because we got held in the pits for so long, about 20 seconds we were held in the pits, it was pretty touch and go as to whether we'd get a second lap in, so I didn't want to dawdle around too much. We crossed the line there with 2 minutes and 20 seconds, which is just enough to start a second lap, but we're going to go out for the first lap. Of course, tyre wear off, fuel off, so the car's pretty similar, if not exactly identical to how it is in time trial. But Group 3 around this track is actually a good challenge, because Eau Rouge, Blanchimont and Stavelot are all, once again, pretty touch and go. So whether they're flat, we get a very close call at the top of Radeon as we head through turn 4. And I was thinking, oh, it was a penalty. It was a penalty indeed. So that is no good. Actually, yeah, that's actually a pretty muted response, actually, because it's more than no good, because what that does is it invalidates the lap you get the penalty on, and because there's only one set of penalty gates at Spa, which is on halfway down the Kemmel Straight, your next lap's also ruined, because you invalidate your penalty lap, and then you also have to serve it on your following lap. Damn penalty. So we probably cut the top of Eau Rouge Radeon, probably by a millimetre, 1 millimetre, and that was the difference between qualifying well, which was mid-top 10, and qualifying terribly, which we have in 16th. But let's see if we can turn it around in the race, but not before the Nations Cup introduction. Lovely, as always, we meet ourselves on the grid. Let me know if you're sick of the intro, by the way. I think I received some feedback just yesterday that we're all probably sick of seeing the intros, because we've seen it every race for the last 3 or 4 years, or whatever it's been, 4 years I think. So do let me know if you're sick of it, and I can just cut it out completely. It probably will shorten the video a bit, which I suppose may not be a bad thing. But anyway, starting from the back of the grid, on the outside for turn 1, chaos is going to ensue, or well, I say it's going to, I guess it's not guaranteed, but it's highly likely to ensue as we release off the starting grid with false start check, a little bit of traction control required. But coming into La Source for the first time, we're around the outside, so let's make sure we don't run too wide onto the Astro like all 4 of these cars have. Bit of contact there, and another car spins, and we find ourselves up into 10th. We've got another car on our right hand side with a little bit of overlap going around the outside of turn 2, but he sensibly backs out, does Jackery, and we head up Eau Rouge over Radeon. Make sure we don't cut that, but I think we managed to keep it on the curb. Just about. Penalty up ahead, another penalty, 3 penalties, including me. I swear that was on the curb. I kept it on the curb. Ah, well. Little bit of an exasperating response from me in the live radio. but we get over it pretty quickly because it's only half a second. Everyone else ahead has a penalty, and I guess we'll look behind and see if there's any penalties shortly. There's another penalty behind, so that's 5 penalties pretty much within the span of 5 consecutive positions. So in terms of the race for position here, the penalty isn't really a penalty because compared to all the cars around us, we're going to lose all the same amount of time. So it could be worse. All I've got to make sure is that we don't get swamped by the people just behind the Greatness, who also has a penalty. So Greatness has a penalty. I've got to make sure that all the people behind them don't swamp all 5 of us serving the penalty. But it's only half a second. It shouldn't be too much of a detriment. But anyway, this combination, Audi R8 we're all in. In fact, you might notice there's a couple of people in Porsches up ahead. That's because there's actually select Group 3 cars. It's not just open Group 3, not open to your whole garage. That's not this combination. We're actually limited to a nice select few German Group 3 cars. So Audi R8, Porsche 911, BMW M6, and I think there was another one. I can't quite remember. Must know. Oh, Mercedes AMG GT. Those are your 4 choices for this race, but the best car by quite a margin is the Audi R8. If you can't quite get a handle of the Audi R8, the Porsche 911 was your next best option. However, I also was going to jump in the Porsche, but I jumped in time trial, and it didn't feel right. It felt very loose, very slidey, and yeah, I just struggled a bit. I couldn't quite understand how the Porsche was working around here, and then I jumped into the R8, and I could tell this car has a better handle on the slipperier tyre, which is the Racing Hard that we're all on. So, I decided, what, I'm going to commit to the Audi. Let's see what we can do. But we're coming up to Eau Rouge Radeon for the second time. We're all going to serve our penalties. You see the gap has just extended out, or the gaps, rather, have all extended out. I'm a lot closer to Kiwi here. Schnicko's a little bit further back from the back of whoever's up in 7th, can't quite make it out at this particular stage. We're all going to serve the penalty here, just moving around from the back of Kiwi. Let's see if we can cheeky goes through him. But Kiwi returns to the racing line there, so let's look down the inside. But I actually make a little bit of an error there and go very conservative. I don't commit. I don't just slam on the brakes and send it down the inside. I don't lick the stamp there and send it. A little bit of a mistake, because I really should have. So we're going to have to get the move done instead at turn 8 here, around the inside of the hairpin. A very long downhill hairpin there, so it's really easy to understeer wide. So around the outside there doesn't really work, and Kiwi just has to back out, just has to forfeit, and I'm up into 9th at this stage here. The strategy for this race, by the way, it's a very easy no-stop race. Well, actually, it's not very easy, because this car becomes quite a handful in the second half as the tyre wear drops off. But you definitely do not make back the pit loss if you do decide to pit. So we've been released into 9th position. Schnickerman is 1.5 seconds up the road. So we're going to have to see how this gap sort of changes and develops as the race goes on, as we head through Stavelo. You can see Schnickerman is beginning to crawl onto the back of who now I can see in 7th, NX Matt G, who is driving a Porsche at this stage in the race. We skip ahead 1 lap, and you can see that gap between Schnicko and Matt G has closed down. In fact, I think they're running side by side, so that Porsche just struggling up against the meta car of the Audi R8 as Schnickerman's looking to be going down the inside at Blanchimont. I think there's a bit of side-to-side contact, and Matt G gets shuffled out onto the green AstroTurf on Blanchimont, and that's Schnickerman passed up into 7th for him. But unfortunately for Matt G now, he becomes susceptible to me. So I could tell Schnickerman caught up to, from, looking like he was on the front foot to actually making the move. It took him a lap against that Porsche. And now it's my turn. So the gap to Matt G here is 1.3 seconds. Let's see if we can get a very good La Source hairpin at turn 1. Or maybe a little bit deep on the brakes there. But we get a nice straight exit. That gap has closed down to about a second to Matt G now, so not quite close enough to be within slipstream. But this is the story on the following lap, where we get a much more defined apex at turn 1, really using the curb. And look at that, 0.7 of a second within slipstream of Matt G. So I can tell at this stage, this is where the Audi R8 really shows its stars. It really just is a better car compared to that Porsche. That Porsche a little bit more slidey and doesn't quite react the same way on the slippery tyre that the Audi does. So that's really becoming a big pertinent issue here because I can tell Matt G is beginning to show signs of being on the back foot as he just slides into Lecombe chicane there. We're getting very, very close. We weren't quite close enough to go for that move at Lecombe chicane there, but we're well within slipstream, 0.3 of a second. We're going to fast forward through all this middle sector here because there's not really a spot to get past unless Matt G makes an error, and he doesn't. He doesn't make an error through there on the exit of Pouon into the Lafugna chicane. Let's see. We're a lot better through here, a lot more gripped up on the apex and carrying the speed through the corner. That's the MR characteristics of the Audi R8, really shining, and Matt G just struggling to get that Porsche turn because that Porsche, even though it is an MR, it doesn't handle like the rest of them. It's a lot more rigid and a lot more solid. But yeah, I don't know, the Porsche's a very weird car to explain. Doesn't react and move around the same way that the Audi does. So Matt G just struggling to get the car turned like the Audi, taking a lot of that green Astro on the entry to Blanchimont, and that just puts him a little bit slow, perhaps giving him unnecessary dirty tyres there. So we're going to be looking around the outside of the chicane. Doesn't quite happen. Matt G takes the apex. Let's see if we can get a straighter exit on the exit of the chicane. In fact, Matt G gets the better exit there. So a little bit of a failed attempt at a move there, but now we're just closer than we were on the lap previous to try and get this move done down the Kemmel Straight. We catch up a load of ground under braking, get an okay apex there, straight on the exit. A little bit unstable in first gear this car is, especially as the tyres are beginning to wear out as we traverse onto the 6th lap of this stint. But up 0.3 behind Matt G this time. We have to get a good Eau Rouge Radeon here, just taking a nice and conservative. We don't want to push the car and try and take it flat, especially in the dirty air, because a penalty at this stage in the race will be absolutely detrimental. We get a much better run through Eau Rouge Radeon compared to Matt G. He doesn't defend the inside properly sensibly, knowing that I'm faster than him at this stage in the race. We send it down the inside on the brakes into Lecombe chicane, and coming up into the handling portion of this track, the Audi R8 is going to be a lot better than the Porsche through here, so Matt G is going to struggle to come up with a reply to my particular move there. We're now going to cast our eyes forward once again. Even though we were fighting a little bit with Matt G, Schnickerman is only still 1.5 seconds up the road, so I'm not sure if Schnickerman is actually too much quicker than me at this particular stage in the race. We're going to skip ahead all the way to lap 7, where the gap to Schnickerman still 1.5 seconds. However, the key difference this time is Schnickerman's come up against another Porsche, this time driven by PAL 97, and you can see they're now running side by side as I think PAL went a little bit wide on the exit of turn 15 there, out onto the Paul Corp Frere straight, and this time the key difference is PAL was able to defend the inside of Blanchimont, unlike Matt G, who's dropped off the back of us 1.6 seconds. Schnickerman looking around the outside of the chicane, PAL defending the inside and takes that apex a lot better than Schnickerman can from the outside line on that particular scenario, and that is us within slipstream. Schnickerman, a little bit of side-by-side action between the two cars up ahead, and we're now in slipstream, but unfortunately for me, I think Schnicko's a lot closer to PAL than I am to Schnicko, so that gap opens up to beyond the slipstream range, so they're both going to take the inside of the corner, and I'm out of slipstream, so I may as well take the racing line this time and let them sort of fight it and duke it out and let them just lose time as a pair together. And look at that, we successfully take the better line into Lecombe chicane. We let Schnicko and PAL fight it out without me getting into the mix, and we're now 0.5 second in slipstream. That's a lot better. That's a very good return out of that little sequence there, and we're now very well within this fight for 6th there. Tez is just up the road there, so that's a little bit frustrating. That's Tez up in 5th and Atom in 4th. We could have been in that fight if we simply qualified better, so that's the only blemish in this particular race that seems to be going very well from the back of the grid. Unfortunately, we have to fight through the traffic, unlike Tez and Atom. We could be up in that fight for 4th, but it wasn't quite meant to be, was it? But let's cast our attention back to this fight here. Schnicko and PAL. PAL once again in that Porsche, just struggling as the Audi R8 really shows its colours, really shining. It's such a shining star around this track. The Porsche, yes, easier to drive, but if you get a good handle of the R8, it's so much easier to go quicker than what PAL can. Schnicko looking to make a gap on the inside of turn 15, turn 16 rather, is this shallow left-hander he was, and then Bloncham on turn 17, not quite able to do it. We're a little bit wide, just understeering a bit. We have to get out of the throttle completely there, as to not understeer off the track. Pal defending down the inside again, coming onto the final lap now. All this fighting has got me into the mix now. This is a three-way fight for 6. We've got 1 lap to do it, as we just nudge Schnicko a little bit on the exit of that bus stop there, and it just puts us off a little bit, but we're 4/10 behind. Matt G still 1.8 seconds behind, so we've got no pressure from behind. It's simply eyes forward at this stage. However, on the 9th lap of this stint, the tyres are going to be dropping off, and the Audi R8 is going to become even more slidey, to the point where it's really difficult to control. If you just get the turn in a little bit too aggressive, it's really smooth driving on this lap here. We've got to try and minimise those errors, especially when we've got 6th position just up the road. Pal is on the back foot, and Schnicko just forms a little bit of a roadblock between us. Schnicko, half second penalty. That's him out of the battle. That's going to round up to a second. He's going to have no opportunity to serve the penalty on track. It will round up to a 1 second penalty when he crosses the line. So he's out of the mix now. So it kind of got to the point here. I'm like, Schnicko, you're out of the fight. I want to see if I can have a go at Pal. I want to get up into 7th there. Can you try and facilitate it for me? But that's my thinking at the time. But he's by no means obliged to just let me by. He doesn't have to do that. It's not within the rules. He doesn't have to let me by. His mindset will be right now to try and minimise time loss, to not lose as many positions as he potentially could with Matt G, just 1.8 seconds behind. If we fight too much, Pal gets a low to oversteer on the exit of Pouon there. Gives Schnicko a look in around the outside. The gap on the inside doesn't open up for me. I have to go to the outside, but I'm hemmed in by Schnicko and don't have an opportunity to try and hang it around the outside of Pal, and Pal sends it down the inside of Schnickerman. Matt G is 1.4 seconds behind as Schnicko slides through the exit of the Fugner chicane. I break early here. Schnickerman goes deep. Do I get the cut back? Do I perform the cut back on turn 14, turn 15? I do. I've got a significant overlap there with the inside line for this run out onto the straight. Get a nice, decent power application there, even though we had a compromised line, and we're still in the slipstream of Pal as Schnickerman drops behind. I can't see Schnickerman coming back at me now that I've also got the slipstream of Pal, but that 6/10 gap is going to be a really tall order to try and close down in one braking zone. So the only thing I can pray for is that Pal 97 is going to make an error into the chicane here. Got Schnicko right up my bumper as we head on the exit of the chicane. One last power application. Pal nails it, and there's nothing I can do. We're going to come across the line for a 7th position. Oh man, I mean, it was a good fight through the field, to be fair. I'm not even displeased with that performance at all. Really good race pace from me. Damn it. One more lap. Oh, one more lap. Good battle though. Very good battle. Very good battle though between Pal and Schnicko. That's great. Great work. So even though I was stuck in that fight there and couldn't quite get onto 6th position or even fighting for further positions, I can't be displeased at a good battle like that. For 233 points as well. It's not a massive up there result for me, but it's a really nice banker result. So it's not going to be a counting round at this stage. I've got 2 really solid results that still count, but that is just another banker. If I have a shocking second half of the season, I've got a 233 pointer to fall back on. So shocking qualifying, but really good race, really good fight through the pack, and I've done it again. Fought through from the back of the pack at Spa. I did it in Group 1. I've done it again in Group 3. So it's just something about Spa. I think, Spa, it's just a solid racetrack, and it does it every time for me. So I've done it again. Fought from the back after a shocking qualifying. All I need to do is just get my bloody qualifying right at Spa. That's the only Achilles heel I seem to have around here. But 233, nothing to sneeze at, and I kept it. I didn't go again. I felt as though the maximum I could gain from another slot was probably only about 20 points, and I didn't really feel it was worth it. I probably would have needed to win the second slot because the points drop a lot as the slots go on. That's just what happens in Oceania. But anyway, good battle with Pal and Schnicko. Really got to set up the field. I'm overall really happy with that round. So do hit the like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Do leave a comment as well. Questions, comments, and constructive criticism, as always, very much appreciated. But that's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.